I'm Libby Emmons. I'm with the Post Millennial. I am here with Michael Knowles. We are at Brave Books Day at the Library. We are at the Library of Congress in the Green Room, which is very cool. This is an event that was put together by Kirk Cameron and Brave Books to combat, counteract drag shows at libraries and drag queen story hours. And I'm really excited to talk to you about it. You came up from Nashville for this event, and it's so cool that after getting rejected from 50 libraries for the day at the library, Kirk Cameron has landed at the biggest library in the world, the most prominent library in the entire country, here at the Library of Congress. What do you make of that wild and crazy transformation of culture?
Well, the boys are back in town. In many ways, people are talking about a federal takeover of Washington, D.C., which is a ridiculous term because D.C. is a federal district,
Sure
so
is.
they never gave it up. But I think this is really a Nashville takeover of D.C.
Oh, how so?
Because both Kirk and I flew in from Nashville for this event, and of course D.C. is this is the national capital, and so of course this should represent the whole country, and as a symbol of where our culture went. It had gone very, very far left in a way that voters didn't like. Obviously, last November, Trump won not only the Electoral College, but he won the popular vote. A big part of that was how hard the left had pushed on culture. And I think maybe the symbol of that was pushing transgenderism on kids. It just has nothing to do with education and what people want. So it's fitting that this is being put on by Brave Books, Kirk's company, but also by the Department of Education Center for Faith.
Is that right?
Yes, because there's a correlation here. You know, it's no coincidence that in the Library of Congress we have a statue of Moses holding the Ten Commandments. We have 2 lines of scripture inscribed on the walls. We have 2 very important Bibles, the giant Bible from Mainz and also the Gutenberg Bible. Why is that? Because in the religion that built our country, on which our country is founded, God and the Word are one.
Right.
That's not true of every religion. That's not true of every tradition, but it is true of ours. And so the library is supposed to exist to be a repository of knowledge that helps you to be educated. And activists had turned libraries toward the opposite purpose in recent years.
Right, toward the destruction of morality.
Toward the destruction of morality, toward the misunderstanding of reality. I mean, even just not understanding the world, you know. I think they confuse the circus for the library, I think. And so what I think this event represents is a restoration of the library, of American education, and really of the whole public life to its original purpose. You know, we're just kind of grounding it back on truth and normality and the sorts of things that lead to human flourishing. That wouldn't be such a shocking turn of events had we not just lived through the last decade of insanity.
Yeah, I was so happy to get invited to this because I was like, "This is amazing. We're going to the library. We're going to the main library. It's the biggest branch, you know,
and the largest library in the world.
And after all of these years of essentially having morality, values, reality, biology just entirely shut out from culture. You know, you express, as an artist, you express that men aren't women, and the next thing you know, you don't get to be an artist anymore. You don't get to, you know, have a career in the arts. And here we are with this big transformation. Do you think that this kind of transformation is being felt? Do you think it's rippling out in the rest of culture in terms of, you know, Hollywood, book publishing,
without question,
theater, all of these things?
Yes, I mean, look at Sydney Sweeney and American Eagle.
Yeah,
You
right.
know, because a lot of people have said that politics is downstream of culture. Conservatives have loved saying that for 10 or 15 years now. And there's some truth to that. There are cultural movements that are not always reflected at the ballot box, and that can help shape the political order. The opposite is true, too. The culture makers also pay attention to what happens at the ballot box.
Right.
And when Trump won, not only the election, but also the popular vote, that was a signal to the entertainers. That was a signal even to the educators who have been mal-educating people for a long time. That was a signal that the people were not going to put up with this anymore, and they wanted a return to normality, you know. And it gets us back to basics. You know, I think one of the big questions with the library, with education is, well, what is this for?
Right.
Is education for exposing my kid to obscenity and weird stuff? Is education is the library for telling people things that are not true, like that a man can be a woman, to use the clearest example. Is that what it's for? No, that's not what it's for.
Right.
The purpose of education is to convey the truth, but it's not even just to fill your head with a bunch of facts. That's how we think of it now. If you go back to the original Webster's dictionary, Noah Webster's definition then was much more classical and traditional. Education is about forming a whole person.
Right.
And in particular, he says, it's important to expose kids to the arts and sciences. That's important. Religious education is indispensable. And parents who neglect that are engaging in a terrible dereliction of responsibility, because it's got to get down to the whole person. And what are we training ourselves for? Well, to have a good life. And you're not going to have a good life if you think that up is down and left is right and wrong is right.
Or if you think there's no such thing as good and evil.
Yeah.
Also, in terms of teaching the Bible and teaching, religious values, if you don't teach the Judeo-Christian Bible, you're not going to have any understanding of history or literature or poetry
You can't read any
or
other book.
art. You can't.
Right.
You can't do anything else.
Right.
And things have been so malformed in the past few years that we've been feeding our children this nonsense about, boys in dresses are really girls and all of these other things. And I think that it's so great to get back to some of these basics. And ideally, we will not be irreversibly harming our kids the way we have been when we've just been depriving them of knowledge and wisdom and history and our culture. And Trump has been doing a lot of things in culture. What do you think of the changes that he's going for with the Smithsonian? I think it's 8 museums that he's starting with, going in and saying, like, hey, do we love America over here? What are we doing? What do you make of that?
Well, I love his critics are saying this is a terrible authoritarian takeover. He's trying to take some power over the arts.
Right.
And history. And I said, well, what have you all been doing for the last 70 years now?
Exactly.
And of course, I don't even really knock the left. I knock the left for how they malformed our understanding of history and the arts. But I don't knock them for engaging with it.
Right.
What is our country separated from our history? How can you understand the country if you don't have a particular view of history? So the battle over history is a battle for the heart of the country, and it's a battle for our future.
Yeah.
The same goes for the arts. How can you understand a people if you neglect the plays and the poems and the pictures and the architecture even? If we're going to live in some brutalist dystopia like the left has given us for the last 60 years, that's going to color the way we view ourselves. If we're going to have big, beautiful neoclassical buildings, as President Trump has called for in the first term and in this term, that's going to give us another sense. I mean, the classic example of this is when you would walk into the old Penn Station in New York, you felt like a king. This is a big, grand
It was great.
temple. It was beautiful.
Kind of like Grand Central is still, you have the beautiful sky.
That's the last way you can kind of see what it was like. When you enter into the new Penn Station, you feel like a rat. You're in a little rat maze below that. It changes the way you view yourself.
A rat eating McDonald's.
That's right.
Somebody else's McDonald's.
That's right.
It's terrible.
That's right. So when Trump says the federal government is going to engage with these federal institutions on culture and history, and I guess my question is, what else did the people elect him to do? They elected him to make America great again. That involves our culture. That involves our history.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways we're bringing beauty back. And I think that it's so important when you walk around in the world to be part of something beautiful, to think of yourself as a beautiful, creation in the image of God, to think about our world in this way so that you're not just, looking at everything as a tattooed, purple-haired, nose-pierced mess who hates God, hates themselves, and hates the country.
Yes, the egghead conservative movement types who hate Trump, their big mistake is, some of them, they're too rationalist. They think of everything like 5 ideological bullet points on the back of a napkin. They don't have a sense for why beauty matters. They don't have a sense for the relationship of the transcendentals, the good, the true, and the beautiful. And it is kind of funny that they look at Trump as garish and tasteless and a brash materialist. This man has a better sense for beauty than any of them have had. And it is fitting, I think, that at this moment where we're so starved for beauty, that we've elected a guy who's made his career building luxurious buildings and giving people luxurious experiences.
Yeah, you always want to stay in a Trump hotel. It smells nice, it's luxurious.
Yes, no, even people, they make fun of him because he puts his name in gold. The first time I ever went to Mar-a-Lago, I thought, I bet this is going to be gaudy.
It's
garish.
not.
It's not. It's very, very tasteful.
Yeah.
Now we got to bring that to Washington, D.C., as the president is doing.
I agree with that. Great. Thank you so much.
Good to
Thank
see you.
Yeah, you too. It's been a minute.